Another major milestone, to the credit of Dave Clark, you had a long presentation from him, one Rab meeting you may recall, on finalizing the tech memorandum to the historical radiological assessment. And what that did is it culminated all of the research that had been done, plus all the data that had been gathered since the original document, and it made a final synopsis of what either is not radiologically impacted or what is radiologically impacted. And by radiologically impacted, what we mean is a piece of property that needs further investigation because it has some level of potential, even if very little, it has some level of potential of having radioisotopes there. So if you're not completely confident that there are not radioisotopes there, then you must radiologically impact it. And what you saw in Dave Clark's presentation is there were major steps forward made in radiologically impacting other portions of Treasure Island. So that was a major milestone. We also, in August, finalized a community relations plan that Tommy Jean and I worked on for a long time. And that was a great job on your part. And Site 33. Remember, Site 33 is the one circular site that we closed in 2014. That's the waterline replacement area. Big, fairly large parcel of land. We closed that because we were able to finalize the completion report. This remedial action meaning the cleanup, and the completion report of the cleanup. When it goes final, and we have the concurrence of Medi and her organization, and Miriam and her organization, then it goes final and the site actually closes. A couple other documents that are worth noting is we did a document that is not really Dave's and my document because it's not a purely environmental document, it's an environmental and real estate document, and it's called Finding of Suitability to Transfer, a FOST. The Finding of Suitability to Transfer we did for 8 parcels on Treasure Island and what's called the submerged property, and can you show them that? Basically that's the old Site 13, the offshore sediments. That was closed out a long time ago, but nothing was ever done with it until this time. And I believe, Dave, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I believe what happened here is you gather up a certain amount of property that is available for transfer, but you wait until you have a certain amount in a basket of properties before you do a finding of suitability to transfer. And that's why really, instead of transferring all of these itty-bitty pieces, there's one package that went into the FOST.
Correct. That's at this time we're transferring everything that is suitable, that makes sense according with the plans. Yeah. Correct.
And that FOST has been finalized. Now what that means is at the end of this year, the next couple of weeks, Bob Beck, correct me if I'm wrong, the Navy's, I believe, the real estate side of the Navy is going to tender the property to the city of San Francisco.
Yes, we're expecting that soon, and hopefully we'll close around the end of January.
Around the end of January?
Yeah.
Okay. So what happens is the Navy tenders, in other words, we offer the property up with the finding of suitability to transfer, and then I believe there is a political process in place here. The Board of Supervisors holds a meeting and a vote.
No,
No?
The acceptance of the property has already been approved.
Oh, it's already been approved?
Yeah.
Okay.
So now it's purely an administrative process of making sure that all of the requirements of the EDC MOA are met.
Okay.
That we have, the title documents worked out and title insurance and all of that.
Okay. And from your perspective, then that's the city of San Francisco double checking that the Navy has done everything right and dotted all the I's and crossed all the T's so that you can ultimately receive the property.
Correct.
Okay. All right, so if all goes well, then you're talking about end of January, early February, the city of San Francisco will have new pieces of property.
Exactly.
Okay. All right.
And just for the record, the EDC MOA, that's the Economic Development Conveyance Memorandum of Agreement. For the record.
Right, which is the framework for the agreement between the Navy and the city of San Francisco. Okay, and then Site 24, our groundwater site. We did a focused feasibility study addendum that we completed that's going to allow us now to move into the proposed plan. Danielle is saying in late February, and we'll have a meeting by late February also, where we'll discuss what the Navy's recommendation to clean up the remaining groundwater contamination on Site 24 is. Those of you who happen to be on the bus tour know that we talked a little bit about Site 24. Originally, it was about 20 acres of contaminated groundwater. The total surface area of the remaining groundwater is about half an acre, not 20 acres anymore. And we've taken down the contamination levels by 2 orders of magnitude. So meaning that it's gone down from tens of thousands of contaminants, parts per million, down to about 1,000. But there is residual compounds left in the groundwater that Danielle has had to look at and work on alternatives and make a recommendation on how to clean up the remainder of it before it can become ready to transfer in the future. We also, I say, signed Site 6 record of decision. That's because I signed Site 6 record of decision, and I don't mean to jinx this, but Department of Toxic Substances Control needs to look at it and then hopefully sign it, from my perspective. And then it goes to the water board, and then they'll hopefully do the same. So we're very close to having a final record of decision on Site 6. And then we accomplished also, in the Superfund law that people talk about, one of the requirements for the Navy is to do 5-year reviews. Every 5 years you have to review your sites with a focus on those sites that already have these records of decision, these cleanup solutions that the Navy's committed to. So we did our first 5-year review. It's about to come out, but we've finished on that. Danielle and Dave and I have been working on that quite a bit. We will also have a 5-year review fact sheet. So that's going to look a lot like the progress report you received tonight, and that's going to be coming out in the next couple of weeks. Basically, that's a good document for you to review. And I say this especially for RAB members. If you don't review every document, because it's hard to do that, this is one of those that's really good because it's a summary document, and it goes over. We don't just discuss the sites that we have records of decision on. In our organization in BRAC, we discuss really the whole program. We focus on those that are more mature sites that have cleanup solutions, but we actually talk in summary about all of them. So it's kind of the state of the program, and that's what we've tried to do in our first 5-year review of the base. And then finally, we did a Site 21. That's if you can put that out, Dave. Remedial action completion report that's going to come out before the end of the year. Okay, next. Did you want to?
Sure. So for the field work, as you know, a lot of field work actions going on. One of the newest projects that's been started this year is the Site 6 radiological survey. Out of the HRA STM, or the Historical Radiological Assessment Supplemental Technical Memorandum, Site 6 was impacted due to it was operationally impacted due to the fact that the Navy used it as a storage area for the low-level radiological bins. So we're currently in the process of looking at the area, doing gamma walkover surveys and taking appropriate samples to demonstrate to the California Department of Public Health that we can in fact free release the site. And so that's a significant step because Bryce will be coming right behind that crew and actually implementing the remedial action, which is tied to the record of decision that Keith mentioned in the previous slide. So that's significant progress on that site. And a lot of the residents know Site 12, the housing demolition. We're moving into sort of a new phase in Site 12 where we're actually going subsurface to the buildings, as the buildings were built on top of subsurface issues. And so to date we have 9 buildings that are demolished, some of them West Side Drive, and then obviously we're moving also to Bayside and North Point as well. 4 more buildings are planned to be demolished. We'll probably actually get to them in January. This is December, but I think it'll be more like a January timeframe to bring those buildings down. And we'll make sure to coordinate with the residents new work notices to go out so that you know what's going to go on. But the process, as you've seen, will be very similar. We'll be dealing with the roofing materials, recycling anything that can be inside of the appliances, taking any of the asbestos issues out of the buildings that are in the non-accessible areas, and then ultimately demolition. So we'll take them down to the pads. Ultimately the pads themselves will be taken up so that we can get underneath them where we know that contamination exists. The other major Site 12 work that went very well this summer, thanks to all the residents in particular, was the radiological scans for the interior residences that happened June through August. Prior to that, we did something that was a little less intrusive. We did all of the open spaces, roadways, and backyards. So what you basically have to date is about 95% of the total surface area inside and out of Site 12 having some sort of radiological scan. The property that's left really consists of the solid waste disposal area, the fenced areas. Not all that area has been scanned. And then you also have the Bigelow Court area, which represents an area that is not fully characterized as well. But for every accessible area within Site 12, we have some sort of data that represents the condition of the site. So that's a pretty significant milestone, I think, that we have a whole data set for Site 12 accessible areas. Sites 31, the restoration, as we mentioned before, that'll be documented in the remedial action completion report. Site 31, that site restoration has been complete, so you now have access to the intersection, which has been off limits for some time, so hopefully that makes it a little easier to get around the island. Site 33, a little less in the way of things, but we finally have the site restored for that area, as well as getting site closure for that in September, so that's good progress on the site. That's been around for quite a while as well. Groundwater monitoring, of course, continues. We generally keep our monitoring to Site 21, 24, 6, and 12. Those are the main sites. And you'll see that going on for years as we look at the low-level contamination degrade, or in the case of Site 12, we have some petroleum mixed with arsenic that we monitor as well. Site 12 data gaps investigation, as Keith alluded to, Bryce's data gaps investigation this summer in Site 12 was to really supplement the rather massive data set that we have for Site 12, really for chemical contaminants. And this was to go in there and really fine-tune the data set that we have in order to more surgically go in when we finally take our remedial action and really get a good plan, best use of taxpayers' dollars for any excavation that we need to make. Also, as I mentioned, underneath the buildings, we didn't have any data from underneath the buildings, and this summer we were able to do that horizontal drilling to get under the buildings and finally get some data underneath that. So we didn't just have to demo the buildings, then find out whether something was underneath it. So that's going to allow us to reduce our footprint and the impact to the residents in the future by not having to demolish as many buildings as we would have previously anticipated. Site 12 data gaps, so that's that. The solid waste disposal area at Bigelow Court, sort of right in this neighborhood right there. And that's the other solid waste disposal area. We call it that. The naming of that is a long story. As it turns out, it really was not particularly a known disposal area. We really didn't find a lot of debris. It was a storage area, which is a little different than a disposal area. With the storage area, you have more superficial contamination due to things stored there over the years, and they sort of get pushed down. You may have an incidental burial site here or there, but it's not a large-scale burial situation such as we have at West Side Drive at Site 12. So what it really turned out to be was some chemical contamination that was rather well bounded through the years as we went through the RI, the remedial investigation, and the other data gaps investigations that were performed all through Site 12. And we were able to go into that site, perform it, and we actually got clean sidewalls when we did the excavation. So that field work right now, the excavation is complete. And what we'll do now is wait to get some state input on what we did. And then ultimately we'll be able to backfill the site and then close out that phase of what really is a non-time critical removal action. Site 27, as Keith mentioned, the remedial action completion report, we're wrapping that up. Or actually, Mehdi mentioned that she'd reviewed it, part of the Department of Toxic Substances Control. And part of the remedy after the dredging and then the backfill with Armor Rock was to do a survey of the bottom of the site. So basically, the workers go there and they measure how far it is from the top of the water down to the bottom. And that gives us an idea of did anything change from 1 year ago when we completed the remedy. And so the data will be in that report. Basically, I don't think we had any changes at all from what I've heard. So. that went well.
And I